Some people travel across the globe collecting artifacts and sacred objects, but Lane Carlson collects medicine stories. Take a look at one man's journey across the world, where he asks the question, what's your medicine? Wow. Passion. I love this. That's medicine in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome, Lane. Welcome to the Healing Matrix.
Thanks for having me on.
Of all things, how did you get focused on medicine stories?
This all started from a young age. My personal experience with some trauma, diagnosed with depression as a kid, as you saw. And this was at 13, 14 years old, where I was being prescribed medications for depression. And I realized, even at a young age, I remember going to my mom, like, do I have to take these things for the rest of my life? And she's like, no, like, you're going to get better. And I was like, oh, what do I got to do? Like, it's just a curious kid. What do I need to do? Go do happy things. Go do fun things for yourself. Take care of yourself. It's like easy, natural things to do. So I did that. I started doing that at a young age, and I stopped taking these, the medication. And when feelings of depression and anxiety were coming back into my life later on, going through a breakup, maybe the career wasn't going to where it wanted to, I had these feelings come up again, and I was like, uh-oh, here comes that darkness again. What do I need to do? And that's what really led me on the path. That's where I first found meditation. I've heard about it, but I never experienced it myself. I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, and I found, okay, this is good. This is grounding. This is for me to really come back into my body. And that's when then I went and discovered, and I found ayahuasca, and I was like, oh my. It's like a whole new world opened up for me, and this healing world, and different healers and practitioners started coming into my life, and it was such a beautiful experience for myself. That's when I wanted to start sharing these stories, and that's what led me to start What's Your Medicine. So really, it was just my own curiosity to help heal myself, and then finding such great benefits within it all that I wanted to start sharing these types of stories.
So before we dive into that, and I can't wait to do that, let's just go back for a moment. And where do you suppose this depression sensation was coming from? Such an early age. What might have been going on for you?
I was asking myself a lot of those questions, especially at 13, 14 years old. I'm like, why me? Nothing that I could put my finger on was, there wasn't any big event in my life that happened at that point. There was no loss. It was really interesting to me. So I did a spiritual side. I did my master's course in spiritual psychology, and we did this thing called the genealogram, which basically maps out your family history. So think of a family tree, but with trauma. We're understanding where anxiety, depression, where alcoholism, where different cancers are coming in. And I mapped all of this, just interviewing different relatives in my family, and understanding where this energy is coming from. And and I got to see, I was like, oh, wow, no one ever talked about this in my family. A genealogram, understanding where all of these, the anxieties, depressions, the alcoholism, like all of this that was coming in. I'm like, here I am, kind of at that focal point of all of this coming through. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I also understood why my mom and dad went through the same thing. A lot of family members went through this, but no one talked about it. And so my job, where I felt was like, okay, well, this is not a bad thing. Let's talk about it. This is my job to kind of bring this to the forefront. And that's what I understand. It was an energy thing that was coming through. And I also researched a little bit on this. As you also become a part of, think about your family as your tribe. So if you're witnessing your mom or your dad going through this, it's almost like this belonging. I'm going to take on this disease, or I'm going to take on this feeling because you have it as well, and now I belong to my tribe. And so there's a little bit of that in there as well. So that was my understanding of how this came into my being, and what I need to do in this lifetime to help heal that, and also heal that for next generations, because we don't want this to keep going on for other people.
Right. Yeah. And science is certainly showing us today that we have an impact on genetically what we have inherited. We don't have to live that out.
Right.
If we just recognize the truth of who we are, that we're actually here to transform that into something new.
Yeah.
But at 13, at 11, at 10, at 5, we don't know that. We don't know how to do that.
At 13, you're like, and I remember sitting down to go, to go to the doctor, and they're telling me, it was literally like a storybook. You're sitting in this big mahogany desk, and you're going in, and this person has zero connection with you, and they're like, well, as soon as you come in, they're writing on a prescription pad, it's prescriptions to Prozac, and I'm like, what just happened? I have no idea. I have no connection with this person. You know nothing about me, but you're prescribing me a medication at 13 years old.
Yeah.
Like bananas.
You decide to take matters into your own hands. You moved into finding your medicine.
Yeah.
And how did you do that? How did you find your medicine?
From the young age or from the older age?
Yes.
So I'll say both. So from the young age, I found my medicine when all it was that my mom planted a seed in my head. She said, you just need to do fun things for yourself. What makes you happy? I'm like, well, I love sports. I love to play baseball. I love to go outside. I like to run. I love to go do funny movies. She's like, go do that. You're going to get better. So it was her planting that seed of this isn't going to last forever. This is temporary. We all go through these times of darkness, and you're going to be okay. Yeah. And so it was that glimmer of hope that she gave me. And sometimes that's all people need. It's like, look, you're going to be okay. Like it's going to be fine. You need to start doing these fun things for yourself. And when that started coming up later on in life, I was like, okay, I know my body, I know this, but I also know my past had been, okay, I'm feeling bad, I'm going to go party, or I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm like, it just isn't me anymore. Yeah. I want to know what else is going on inside. And so it wasn't always the relationship that was the problem. It was, why is this coming up in my life? And I was able to discover a lot of that, a lot of my untruths that I was living, a lot of what my ego was telling me I should be. And it was nice to be able to peel back that layer and kind of see the truth of who I am and how I need to stand forward in this life and what I need to do. So finding that meditation, and I would say meditation is really my biggest medicine right now. It's what I wake up with. I'm like, okay, that's the one thing I know I can go to and trust is safe. And that's been very powerful.
We talk about meditation as medicine. Maybe we could define for our viewers what medicine means to you. You travel the world saying, what's your medicine? What does medicine, let's just start foundationally. Yeah. What are we looking at when we're asking about medicine itself?
Yeah, and I'll give the when I first heard medicine, I always think clinical and I always think pills. And so part of my medicine now is redefining what medicine means. Yeah. Medicine is beautiful. So what medicine means now for me is medicine's nature. Medicine's breath. Medicine can be sun. Medicine is redefined into so many different avenues right now. And so medicine is what brings you back to that loving place, what brings you back to that natural place of equanimity within your life and with your body. That's medicine.
Medicine, like a salve for the soul.
It's like
coming home.
How do I come back to that innocent place as a baby? Because as babies, you're grown into this bliss of just love, and that's medicine. So how do I get back to that place?
Yes, they haven't forgotten yet.
Right? They haven't forgotten. How do I get back to that place? What's gonna bring me there?
Yeah. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Part of Lane's work is to seek out and test unconventional technologies and therapies. Take a look at the theta chamber.
I'm blissed out watching that.
So we're going to have to ask some questions about some of the things that you compared it to, so that our viewers can relate if they haven't been through some of those things. Sure. But first, let's just speak about what are the benefits of the theta chamber.
So going into, by the way, someone was telling me about this theta chamber. I had no idea. I was like, what is a spinning bed, binaural beats, light therapy goggles? I had no idea what any of this was. And I was like, I got to go try this out. So some of the benefits are, it's one thing being explained this, but when you experience it, it's a whole different level. So theta rest, when we go to sleep at night, you go to sleep, that's that wave that your body and your brain is going to meet at to heal naturally. So our bodies are just beautiful instruments in order to find that healing. So when we're in trauma or we're suffering post-traumatic stress or any type of brain injuries and we're going to bed with that constant stress, we're not allowing our bodies to naturally heal. And that's what this bed does, is it allows you to finally get into that restful place because you're not in your head anymore. You're not in a stressed out place, and you're not in that fight or flight mode. You're in theta rest. And I tell you, 45 minutes into that chamber went by in like 5 minutes. So you don't experience time. And in that place, your body's just finally letting go, and you have no concept of what time is. You're just allowing your body to naturally heal. And what happens then is your body naturally produces serotonin and dopamines to actually bring you back to that beautiful place that we were talking about as a baby, is that infant, is that beautiful natural healing place. That's what that theta bed does. Also with the light therapy goggles, it's a computer generated program that will allow your brain to start creating neural pathways and connections again that are harmonious to your body. And same with the binaural beats. It's allowing the left and right hemispheres to finally communicate in a harmonious way. Where if you've had some neurological damage, or you're suffering from an addiction, it's creating greater pathways again of communication to allow your body to naturally be in that state of bliss, in that state of healing. Mm-hmm. So when I say it was a soup of healing, that's what it was. You're spinning, you've got light therapy goggles, you got beautiful music going in and binaural beats, and yeah. So it was.
So coming out of that, do you have a better sense of what is the benefit? How does someone translate that experience into changing how they are able to be self-healing, or live in this life more comfortably or whole?
And I'll give it from my example in the beginning. Was after that experience in that bed, you come out and it's almost like you've been in the most restful vacation that you've ever been on. And so your interest of the last thing you want to go do is, let's say, go grab a cigarette or go drink or go do anything toxic in your body. You're more aware, and you're more in that state of, wow, this is a beautiful instrument that I am in right now, and I want to take care of it. Mm-hmm. And so you're in that place of, I don't want to harm this vessel right now. And so you're in that place of bliss and love. And when you're in that, you think about that, you're in that vibration, you're also going to attract that vibration around you. And so that's what I felt. And with addicts that are going there, that they're treating a lot of addicts within the Theta Wellness Center. And again, what that's doing for them is the same. If you're doing that 2 or 3 times a week, some people are going in there every single day, and it's curbing that addiction pattern because you're changing the neural pathways in your brain and in your body. You're less likely to go back to these old patterns because you're changing the chemistry of your body. So that's what the Theta Wellness, and that's what the Theta Chamber does for these addicts as well. It's creating the body chemistry in order for them to change behaviors. And when you're doing that, you're creating a whole new being. Instead of going to these vices of like, I've got to have this one thing. It's like, no, like I've just experienced this bliss, and it allows you to stay on that vibration. Yeah.
So you achieve that same state in meditation? You get to that same... Yep. So it's a similar. So for our viewers that are meditators that haven't been in a theta chamber, is it kind of producing a similar effect?
Similar effect, because you're in that state of within a really good deep meditation. Your thoughts are not on job or something in the past injuries. You're in that place of, you want to think, nothingness, and that's where within that nothingness you can allow your body to heal and to function in its proper way. So. That's what the Theta Chamber did for me.
So it kind of acts as a reset. Yeah. So get you over the hump or through a threshold so that you can begin from anew, having had a different experience than the one that you've been in recently.
It's a great way of thinking about it. Is a factory reset button. Especially meditation is that reset button every morning. It's like, how do I want to start my day? The first 20, 30 minutes of your morning can really tell what the course of your life or the course of your day was going to be. So I can start in that place of, at least I can control this first 30 minutes of my day in that nice, peaceful place. Let's see where that goes. Yeah.
What other modalities have you explored and discovered that have been game changers? Any big ones that were significant for you?
Yeah, ayahuasca was a big game changer for me. And ayahuasca was something I heard about. I started hearing stories about it, but I did 2 years of research before I went and did a ceremony. And that's why I always tell everybody else is like, do your research. This may not be something for you. And so that was one that really changed my life. And I experienced what people call an ego death. And it allowed me to really think differently about myself. I was going through a breakup at that time, and it allowed me to finally cry and just let go of the pain and the depression and the feelings of non-worthiness, and just let go and that was such a powerful experience for me. And I did a quite a bit of work with that, in the last 5.5 years. It was a lot of deep ayahuasca work. We did a documentary on ayahuasca. One of our episodes is on there, learning how to make the medicine, what it does to your body, and so that was a very big game changer for me. And think about it this way: it's like it's talk about a factory reset button, and you're like, okay, cool. Now what else is out there? And you start attracting different people in your life. Your interests start changing. So, my happy hours going to the bar with friends was like, not that that's bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but it was different. I just wasn't attracted to that anymore.
That was your medicine.
That was my medicine, and now it's not. And
Yeah.
and sometimes that's people's medicines, but it wasn't my. It wasn't like I can't wait for the weekend so I can go to the bar. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it just wasn't there anymore.
I'd actually rather take care of myself.
I'd rather take care, and my interests in food changed.
Yeah.
And again, not saying that the old stuff was bad. It was just I became more aware. My palate changed. My interests changed. The people around me changed.
Yeah.
Where I was putting my energy changed.
Yeah. This is what happens when we start to wake up.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I started thinking about this: is I've given $100 worth of energy every single day. Where are you going to spend that money? And I started becoming really aware of that. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to waste $50 of energy on toxic food in the beginning of the day, right, I'm going to be depleted by 4 p.m. Then I'm going on reserves, and that's how people get depleted.
Yeah. Exactly. Lane is also working with visionaries who are working with ancestral medicine within a spiritual tradition and with innovation. Please take a look at Aya Flow. Explain how microdosing ayahuasca works.
Yeah, so with Dennis specifically, he works with a lot of people following doing an ayahuasca ceremony. This is the first intro. So you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, and the vine itself is the non-psychoactive part of ayahuasca. It's made up of two parts. There's a trachuna, which is a leaf, and the vine, which is the ayahuasca vine. And so when combined, you have that psychedelic experience in a full-on ayahuasca ceremony. And what has been happening a lot with people going to within ceremonies and doing a lot of plant medicine work is they're missing the link, which is the integration part of it. It's like going to the greatest convention or the greatest workshop of your life, and you're like, I need to do this, and then you go back to your old patterns and stop, and you don't do what you've been taught. So an ayahuasca ceremony is a big teaching. And what Dennis discovered and many other people have is people are losing that connection to what they've been taught and not integrating that knowledge into their life. And so that's what he created, the ayahuasca microdosing, was to keep the medicine in your body. And this is the non-psychoactive part. So the ayahuasca vine still works within the body and helps create new pathways of communication within your body to heal naturally. But the biggest part with Aya Flow is the integration workshops that he's going to do with you. So it's almost like a coaching that someone's doing with you on a daily or weekly pattern. So it's continuous check-ins with people. So if you have an action plan that you need to do, where in my ayahuasca ceremony, I saw that I needed to switch jobs. Okay, so we see this. We know that you need to do that. Your higher self is telling you to do something. We're going to keep you in the medicine. It's non-psychoactive. It's working within your body. But I'm also going to work with you as a coach, or think of it as a accountability buddy is what he is, to help bring you along this process. And that's the biggest part of Aya Flow, is to keep the medicine within your body, to keep that practice. People are doing this, by the way, with psilocybin microdosing, with LSD microdosing. It's to keep that information and keep that knowledge and allowing your body to heal, but then also integrate that knowledge in a practical way.
And how do you check out who's administering such programs and make sure that someone is getting into the right hands?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And by the way, I had no idea when I first started. I did 2 years of research, and I had to find somebody, and I trusted my intuition first of all. But I also, when I met a different healer or a practitioner, I would end up talking to the people that they worked with. Do I resonate with these people? And I'm not just taking information and going off and going to the jungle to someone that I don't know off a whim. Like I need to understand, and people have to understand this. If you're going to go to a school, let's say, like you want to check out the school, you want to read some reviews on it, you want to go meet some people that have actually gone to the school. Same with the teacher, same with the practitioner. Do your research, and your body, and trust your intuition on that as well.
Certainly important.
Yeah, very important. Yeah.
More and more people are opening their minds to explore alternatives for profound healing. We have the privilege today to talk with former Chicago Blackhawks player Daniel Carcillo. Two-time Stanley Cup winner, Daniel was one of the best players in the world. That was until the consequences of repeated concussions caught up with him. Welcome, Daniel.
What's up, Daniel?
How are you, Lane?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's great to hear your story in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Good
Daniel, you had a bout with CTE. You had a development there. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of professional athletes are worried about contracting not only CTE, but neurological degenerative disease after being exposed to so much repetitive head trauma. And one of the things that I advocate for is CTE can only be diagnosed post-mortem. So there's a list of symptoms that a lot of us are experiencing, and these symptoms come from brain injury, which come from brain damage, which causes cognitive dysfunction and puts us more at risk for neurological disease. But that does not mean that we are certainly going to get a neurological disease. And I like to advocate for this and this mission, and to show people that you can recover your brain health by turning to anti-inflammation plant medicine, as well as at the core of our healing is neuroregenesis and neuroplasticity. So you can introduce things like mushrooms into your daily life that promote the right and left brain hemisphere communicating, and that also have been shown in double-blind placebo studies to break up things like amyloid protein, the same protein that causes these neurological degenerative diseases.
What are some of the initial symptoms that you were experiencing?
Light sensitivity, slurred speech, concentration issues, loss of appetite, a lot of impulse control issues, insomnia, anxiety, depression, and then ultimately suicidal ideation. And unlike Lane and other people who are born with these mental illnesses and these neurological imbalances, mine, I really had to learn about it around the age of 25 to figure out what was going on and to really correct it. You can move into recovery, and there's a lot of these concussion clinics that I went to, and I would just caution people to be careful with those, because at the core of our healing, we have to flush out inflammation and we have to promote neuroregenesis. And I don't think that that's done in front of computer screens. And so what I did was I checked my hormones. I checked what my pituitary gland was naturally creating inside of my body. And then I turned to plant medicines like CBD. I had a hero dose of psilocybin to really wake me up from my anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. And now I actively microdose to continue introducing the medicine into my body. And I keep up with certain plant medicines that flush out the inflammation that's in my brain.
And you're not having these symptoms?
No. So
none of them?
No.
None of the symptoms?
So there's anxiety and depression that still comes, but it's much less intense. Mm-hmm. So before, it used to last, it was pretty much every day, and it would last either all day or for weeks. And progressively, it was getting worse and worse. So now when it comes back for an hour, and then I can use my tools that I've acquired, like mindfulness, like deep belly breathing, like holotropic breath work, and simple stuff like yoga, mm-hmm. and making sure that I'm hydrated, and looking at my diet to see what I ate the night before if I wake up edgy, because it usually has something to do with what I put in my stomach, and the mm-hmm. gut-brain axis is really, really strong. So 6 months ago, I was lucky enough, before I went on this journey, to do an EEG, and that showed my alpha, theta, beta. My waves were just way off, all red in certain areas. And then I went back 5 months ago to basically confirm through science how I feel, so that people can't just deny my anecdotal story. When they do that, then I can show them my test results that I have no abnormalities now.
And all this started after the concussions. It just repetitive, chronic concussed state landed you with that symptom pattern.
Yes. So weakened axons, weakened myelin sheath. That's how our brain communicates. And over really since I was 4 years old, we started hitting in hockey. And so as my brain was developing, it was also breaking down. And now I can confidently say that at the age of 35, I've never felt better. And when I did end up winning my Stanley Cups, I was spiritually and mentally and physically dead.
And what kind of support did you get from the NHL at this time when you were struggling? Nothing? No.
I've been effectively blackballed from the NHL and from the NHLPA. I watched my best friend, Steve Monador, who was cleared for upwards of 10 concussions in his career. I watched him slowly deteriorate and slowly die right in front of my eyes. And I've been very outspoken and very honest and vulnerable about my journey because I don't want to see it happen again. And because of that, the Blackhawks have turned their back on me. The NHLPA has turned their back on me, and so is the NHL, which is very, it has to be expected, right? When you have a lawsuit against them and when I'm going to be a critical witness for Steve's case. And Steve's case has the potential to change the world, to change how we view sport-related concussion, because there's no such thing. Just like if you leave this studio and you get into a car accident, you don't say that you got into a car accident concussion, right?
Yeah.
You just say that you have a brain injury. Yeah. So these terms are made up to confuse jurors. And what I'm trying to do is get as healthy as possible so that when I do get on the stand and these lawyers are attacked by drug use and Steve's substance abuse history, and I can really be zen and just point them in a direction that's non-emotional and just really help people understand what's going on with traumatic brain injury.
That's great. So you decided to do something about it for yourself, and you began an inquiry. Did you do research prior to engaging in these alternative practices? How did you find a safe place to begin?
The internet. And then just when I read something that I thought was credible, then I researched who was writing it. And then I kept reading about them. And then if that all panned out and there weren't any biases, then I listened and I tried it. And that is how I've healed myself. And I say that I've healed myself because I really have taken it upon myself to go out, research every single day, read these medical studies, and just put two and two together. Introducing a chemical imbalance onto a chemical problem in your brain is probably not the smartest thing to do. Flushing out inflammation and creating new neurological pathways around your dead neurons and stimulating areas of your brain that were shut down due to trauma just makes a whole lot of sense to me. And I'm not a doctor, but I feel like I'm pretty well read. And over the last 4 years, I read every single day and I listen and I have phone calls. And when I go to these concussion clinics, I asked, well, what did you see? Is there atrophy? And if there is, how can I fix it? And when some of those people in clinics didn't have answers for me, then you just have to go out and seek out the information on your own. And it should be hard to find because Big Pharma's model is to take a daily pill to minimize these symptoms. Meanwhile, my mission is to get to the root cause of these symptoms. Very good. And how did you find Lane? Lane found me. And the source just brought us together. And when I say the source, it's just our higher powers and this mycelium network, I call it. And he reached out, and it's just great to be able to talk to like-minded people who've had a similar experience with these plant medicines. And how are you using psilocybin now? I microdose. And so you asked earlier if these symptoms come back. I was too much in the thinking mind this past week. And so once I can recognize my signs and symptoms, which 3 of the major ones are oversleeping or undersleeping, loss of appetite, and I'm not practicing self-care. And when I start seeing that, and I start seeing it more and more, and I can't use the mindfulness and the other practices, and I am eating right, then I know that there's medicine that can help me. Then as you continue to microdose and continue to introduce the medicine, then there's absolutely no way that I can be in my thinking mind. And if you're not in your thinking mind, then you don't have anxiety, because you're not in the past and you're not too far in the future. You're wholly in the moment. And that's what I've been experiencing since I've used that medicine again. And usually it lasts for 3 months.
Yeah, and I wanted to add here too, is there's the book How to Change Your Mind. Michael Pollan did this book, and we talked a lot about this when we first got connected. It was through a mutual friend. He understood we had similar stories, and that's where Daniel and I really connected. And Daniel's story is exactly the what's your medicine. Like, he's finding his medicines to help cure himself through brain trauma. But utilizing psychedelics like psilocybin in a controlled, powerful way is what Johns Hopkins University is doing right now. There's a $17 million in a grant in order for them to study psychedelics like psilocybin, in order for people to understand that they can heal themselves and allow the body to heal themselves. And this plant medicine, specifically psilocybin, has such a powerful gift in order to allow you to do that yourself. So it's anyway, I really love that part of you, and I love that you're being a psychonaut and understanding this work and doing the work yourself. And I think that, but specifically adding in the science behind this, because I can tell you something works and it's been great for me, but if I can back it up with science. So I love your story, Daniel, and I think you're really stepping forward and doing the work and inspiring so many others. So thank you, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You mentioned the Default Mode Network, and then even the Imperial College of London, and how these medicines work. Right, they work on our sense of self, and specifically with the TBI community, that sense of self is gone after injury. So it can really help people find themselves again and move into recovery. So yeah,
wonderful.
Man.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Daniel. And we know that it's going to be an inspiration for others with CTE. And hopefully we'll get to stay in touch with your progress and your health conditions and your activism. So keep the voice happening.
No doubt. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Daniel.
Okay, see you guys.
Beautiful. So he's one of your medicine stories.
Love him. Yeah.
Yes.
And this is ideally what's happening right now too, is we're understanding. And when I was a kid, didn't have the internet, by the way, so I just dated myself. But we're faced with an injury or a trauma. We need to understand stories that work. People relate to stories. People will relate to Daniel in a certain way and want to try the medicine that he's done. And so he is one of thousands of stories that we'll be covering, but he's exactly one, especially one stepping forward in being a light and being a mentor for other people. So he's working with other athletes that have had brain trauma or concussions and saying, hey, look, I know your doctors are telling you we need to start taking these prescription medications, but what if there was another way?
Yeah.
This is what I did. This is what worked for me. I'm not telling you need to do this, but this is what worked for me. So would you like to try something else? And that's really what we want to do. That kid at 12 or 13 years old that's faced with depression, anxiety, that's being bullied, or that's understanding we've got cancer coming up. What else can I do? I've seen the path of where prescription medications and chemo and everything else goes. What if there was something else? We've got 50% of Americans on some type of prescription medications. It's over 150 million people. What if we could start changing that percentage to go to some different form? Yes. And I'm not saying all prescription is bad. Some people need it. But there are other ways. There are other ways to heal. And that's what we want to do, is that low-hanging fruit for that person to be that doesn't know about meditation, doesn't know about Campbell, that doesn't know about plant-based medicines, to bring them into a different field of healing. And that's what the premise behind this show, and bringing light to these amazing people like Daniel that are doing the work and trying something new.
Important voices.
Very important voices.
Yeah. We're going to take a look at.
I'll walk you through a few steps of this. So it's basically consuming, let's say, a couple liters of water. You're drinking a lot of water before this ceremony takes place, and you'll take the frog medicine. And what I like to tell people is, like, when you were as a kid, when you were 4 years old or 5 years old, and you first remember that flu or that sickness, that you're like, oh my god, I need to puke. That's what this is. And you purge, and your body's basically fighting off a toxin. So all the organs in your body are like, I don't know this foreign substance, and I'm going to flush it out. So that's what's happening within your body, and that's where the detoxification starts coming from. So everything in your body's fighting this off and wanting to purge it away, and that's what ends up happening is you have a purge, and you end up puking a lot of this water out, but also a lot of the toxins and a lot of the bad energy or the panema that's inside of your body. You're letting that all go. And you do, I would say, not directly after the ceremony, but that next day, if you want to feel like the Superman or the Superwoman feeling, you're like, oh my gosh, there is a higher level, and you definitely feel like you've let go of a lot. And it is amazing what starts happening in your life. You start attracting, and for me, I was able to let go of a business that I was no longer aligned to. I was like, and I felt it in my core during that ceremony, and I was able to let that go, and it was a nice emotional release that I don't need to be involved with that person anymore. And it was a great understanding within my body, because my body was telling me something and I wasn't listening. So once you're able to let that all go, I got a lot of clarity after that. And it's, by the way, Kambo is a frog medicine. It's a secretion of a frog, by the way. Nature is all around us. Nature is healing us. So to understand a secretion of a tree frog that's going to go onto your skin to help detox your body blew me away. I was like, this is too weird, until I experienced it for myself. And I was like, okay, I get it. And it's legal in most countries. That's the other thing. I don't think the government's really caught on to it that much. And they're like, who would really want to put themselves through this? But it works. And it's a powerful, it's just another tool. It's not the only tool. It's just another tool out there that people can go to.
Yes. Yeah. So a part of your work is about integration after someone has used plant medicine or maybe Kambo or what have you to work with the integration piece. Now, I'm very big on integration. If we don't have the circuitry to sustain any experience that we're having, the experience can actually work opposite of what we're anticipating or hoping for. Right. It can create a dualistic experience in life where all we want to do is go back and do the medicine again and be in that world instead of this one. So the integration piece is huge as far as I'm concerned, as far as long-term sustainable impact. So tell us about what you're doing to help people integrate these experiences.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of this. So even after, let's say, an ayahuasca ceremony or a psilocybin experience, people like that are working with Aya Flow, we have this experience, but I typically like to have accountability buddies. So you team up with somebody and you're accountable to someone now. So if I have this experience that says I need to stop drinking, and I know I need to stop drinking, or I need to stop smoking, what are the steps that you're actually taking to get there? So how are you actually changing your patterns and your behavior? And you have to be accountable to somebody. Because when you're accountable to yourself, it's easy to be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll just have this one drink. Even though my ceremony or the insight in my Kambo ceremony was that I need to stop doing this, you can cheat on yourself very easily. But when you're accountable to somebody else, it's a lot harder to be, you want to be truthful. And by the way, the biggest part of this is, like, the ceremony is the easy part. The integration, how you're applying this knowledge to your life, is the big part. So it's how you show up now to life, how you show up to this integration is how you're going to show up to everything in life. So that's what I tell people. It's like, this is your journey. Do you want to really heal? Do you really want to do the work? Then do it. Be accountable to yourself and others.
Is this talk therapy that you engage in then, helping them to develop a plan or to glean from the experiences that they're having during these ceremonies to translate it into, okay, what's this mean I'm supposed to do? Is that...
Typically, people will get some type of insight. It could be 2 or 3 things, let's say, for an ayahuasca or from a psilocybin experience. And I'll have them write that down. What is it that you need to do? What is it that you need to change? Typically, everybody has something that they need to change in their life. And yes, then it's a plan. How are we going to get there? And we think of 3-foot tosses. Okay, so in this experience, it says that I need to change my jobs and move to New York. I'm like, that's not going to happen overnight. What are the 3-foot tosses in order for you to get there? So, okay, first of all, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with my manager. Okay, great. When are we gonna do that? Okay, that's gonna be next week. Okay, great. Okay, next I'm gonna have to go research places in New York. Okay, great. When is that research gonna take place? Anyway, it's a sequential step by step, and we think of it a logical place to do it. And when I say 3-foot toss, it's like it has to be obtainable. It has to be a plan that's obtainable. Otherwise, it's going to be too much. It's like someone who's never worked out in their entire life. Like, I'm going to work out for 2 hours every single day for the next week. No, you're not. If you've never done it in your life, why don't you commit to 1 minute, 1 day a week? That's obtainable. And by the way, when you'll get in there for that 1 minute, you can commit to yourself. You'll probably do 30 minutes. So that's when we make a plan, an actionable plan that you're going to do, that you can follow, and I help them coach along on that path to make it obtainable, so that they're not setting themselves up for disaster.
Yeah. Very good. Giving the subconscious evidence that I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. You can do this. Yeah. And then that's part of the accountability too. Is when you're having these struggles, you haven't quite met your benchmark for that week or for that month. Your accountability buddy is there for you to understand, okay, things come up, but guess what? Move on. We didn't quite meet that benchmark, but you're going to do it this week. Make it happen. And that's a big part of this, is you have to be accountable to somebody.
Where can people go to find more of your What's Your Medicine stories?
Yeah, so we have whatsyourmedicine.org. They can go online and check it out over there, and we'll have a link to our YouTube where we have plenty of other stories of different people's journeys.
Lane, thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely.
It's part of a new generation of how to look at medicine and how we need to approach taking care of ourselves and finding our true path. It's been a great joy having you bring all these amazing stories to us today. So thank you for being here.
Beautiful. It's my honor. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Yeah. I think that this information will spark many to have an open mind about what is possible and urge them to ask themselves, what's your medicine? I'm Dr. Sue Morter. Thank you for watching Healing Matrix.